Welcome, everyone. It's good to be here. It's good to see you all. And as is those of you that have joined us before, as is our practice, let's take a moment to intentionally invite ourselves to arrive here to this moment. Right? So depending on where you are, middle of the day, end of the day, maybe in the evening. So there's been something that's come before, there's something that's happening in your life after. But you've chosen to be here now. So inviting yourself and welcoming yourself to arrive. So maybe just having a sense of the body as it's in the chair. Feeling the weight of the body, the feet on the floor. Maybe feeling the rhythm of the breathing. And just taking a few moments to check in and see how you are right now. What are you aware of in the body? How is your body right now? And making any adjustments to support yourself in feeling more comfortable. And aware of the state of the mind, right? So not necessarily the content of thinking, but just noticing how the mind is right now. It might be busy and fast, thinking about stuff that's happened before. Maybe it's more quiet. Maybe at this time of day, it's feeling a little dull. Recognizing the presence of any mood or emotion. So here in this session today, we're sort of exploring this notion of time and how we spend our time. And so here, taking the time to check in with ourselves. Might be the first time you've done this today. The poet Mary Oliver, in her poem, The Summer Day, writes, "Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away." I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And opening the eyes if they're closed, or if you like, just continuing to rest and keep your eyes closed. This last line of Mary Oliver's poem, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? It's quite compelling, isn't it? Right? It's quite an invitation, a reminder that we have this one life, this one precious life. And she goes on to say that everything dies at last and too soon. So this can be very inspiring and thought-provoking to consider. What am I doing with my life? Is this what I want to be doing? Right? And more, I'm seeing this line, and maybe you are, I'm seeing this line. Tell me, what is it you want to do with your one wild and precious life? I'm seeing it often out of context and often in marketing materials, usually an invitation for some endeavor or to embark on something, doing something great, some contribution. And I get this is fine. Like I said, it's a very compelling line. We can feel inspired to do more with the life. We can feel this inner sense of yes, perhaps there is more. And in a world that seems to really value and reward busyness, do more, be better, be special, it can contribute to overdrive, right? It could inadvertently provoke wanting something other, wanting to be doing something different than what's unfolding in our lives in this very moment. And so this can drive us to get very busy. And in times of stress and distress, we humans also tend to let go of the very things that we enjoy. Right? We seem to double down on taking care of other things, taking care of business, getting busy, fixing, doing more. We let go, perhaps, of the simple things. And so for me, when I connect with this poem, what stands out for me is she's not talking about getting busy. She's talking about lying in the grass, being idle, strolling through the fields. And I don't take this to mean just quit everything, right? Because some of you may be thinking, oh, great, I'm at work. Maybe you haven't noticed I've got like a workspace behind me. I can't do that, right? So we'll explore that. But she says something very interesting. She says, I do know how to pay attention. And then she describes that grasshopper in remarkable ways, right? You can see the enormous complicated eyes and the little arms washing. We too know this. We know how to pay attention. And how might this capacity that we have to pay attention affect and influence what we do? And recognizing how what we do may nourish or may deplete us. So let's practice paying attention for a few minutes, right? So we'll use our visual field for this. So just look around the environment that you're in. This may be a place that you're in all the time. It may be a place that you're very familiar with. And just see if you can look around and truly just notice what the eyes take in. Notice the different shapes of the objects in your environment. Notice the different colors. Notice how maybe the eyes pause and linger on something. So right now, choosing something in your visual field. So for example, I have a plant on my desk here. So I'm looking at the plant. So choose something in particular in your visual field, right? And let's play with how we can attend to something. This cultivation of a flexible attention that we build and strengthen when we practice mindfulness. So choosing something that you're looking at, gathering and zeroing right in on a particular aspect. So this plant on my desk, I am looking at the particular point where two branches start to diverge. I'm looking at that little V. And letting your attention rest here for a moment and inviting curiosity in. Right? You can notice, I know this, not much to see here. But when we pay attention, what is possible? And now broaden the awareness. So you're still aware of that particular point that you were looking at, but now broaden around it, taking in more of the visual field. And just notice subtly and internally, how does your experience shift or change with this perception? And now intentionally moving back and forth between this more narrow focus, this particular point on the object, and then broadening out. Paying attention in this way. And let's take this attention that we're offering to this object and now bring it right to ourselves. So if you like, close the eyes. If not, just inviting a soft gaze. And bringing attention to the body. Once again, feeling the body on the surface that you're sitting in, all the places of contact, feet on the floor, seat in the chair. And maybe noticing a particular sensation that's present and holding your attention there for a moment, narrowing there. It might be the feeling of pressure at the feet. Or maybe you can feel the breeze on the face or hands. And just as we did when we were looking at a particular object, broaden again, once again, holding the entirety of the body in awareness. Perhaps now attending to a variety of sensations in the different areas of the body. Not just paying attention, but being curious about what you're seeing and feeling and sensing. And opening the eyes or raising the gaze. So paying attention, so we know how to pay attention. So let's bring this capacity to pay attention right to how we spend our time. So we'll engage in an activity now, and this activity comes from the MBCT, the Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy course, and also from the Finding Peace in a Frantic World course. For some of you that maybe have taken or even teach those courses may be familiar with this. So this is just something that's, I think, very beneficial to do on a regular basis. So we're going to bring our attention to how we spend our time. So for a moment, just reflect on a typical day, right? And you may be thinking, but wait, my weekdays are different than my weekend days. And this may in fact be true. So pick one of those, pick a typical weekday or pick a typical weekend day. And then later on your own, you can do this activity on the other type of day. So just reflecting on a typical day. And jot down now on a piece of paper or something you have nearby what you do. How do you spend your days? And so you want to jot down enough to give you a flavor of your day, but you don't need to be so detailed that it's like, okay, I wake up, I open my eyes, I sit up, put my feet on the floor, I stand up, right? But also don't be like, oh, I get up, I have breakfast, I go to work or I go to school or I go wherever I go, I stay home, whatever, right? So what do you typically do in the morning? What do you typically do in the afternoon? If at home, it might be tending to family, tending to the house, doing some activity. At work, it might be meetings, emails, paperwork. What do you typically do in the evenings? And don't forget activities that maybe weren't even not aware of. Don't forget sometimes when you're just hanging out, scrolling through social media, hanging out on the computer, switching from channel to channel, trying to find something on TV. So here, as you're jotting down your list, we're bringing attention to how we spend our time.
Everything.
So here we're narrowing our attention and spending time on how we typically spend our day, looking at sort of the details of our day. And then when you feel like your list feels a little bit complete, you have a good sense. Go through each item, just as I was inviting you to maybe look at something and pause for a minute and pay attention, or when we were looking at body sensations, we can do this too. So go through each of the activities and just let attention rest there for a moment. And have a sense of how you feel when you're engaged in this activity. And if it's something that you feel nourished by, it's nourishing, it gives you energy, or it's pleasant in some way, put an N next to that. I'm going to put this in the chat. So put an N next to nourishing. And if, as you're reviewing a particular task, it feels draining or depleting, put a D next to it. And then if you're like, it depends. Sometimes it feels nourishing, Sometimes it's depleting. Do people maybe have some of those things? Put in N/D. These are really interesting to go back and reflect on, these activities, the same activity that at certain times with certain circumstances are nourishing and at other times are depleting. What makes that so? And if there are some activities that you do on a regular basis and you're like, you know, I don't have so much of a feeling one way or another. I just do it every day. Put in O, more neutral. So for example, a very simple example is when I leave my house every day, I lock the door. I don't really have a feeling about that either way, right? It's not nourishing, it's not depleting. It's just something I do. So identifying those activities that you do that are nourishing, those that are depleting, those that can be both, those that feel more neutral. And now when you've done identifying how the different activities make you feel, broaden your attention. So step back and look at the whole list. Look at what a typical day looks like. What do you notice? What stands out for you? And if you'd like, you can raise your hand and come on off mute and share what you're noticing. Or if you prefer, you can put it in the chat. Like, what stands out for you when you look at your day in this way? What do you notice? Any surprises? What you expected? Spend a lot of time on social media, which makes me depleted. A lot of time being given to others. I have to do social media accounts for work, and then I spend too much time on it, scrolling, wasting time, drained. Yeah, what else do people notice? Yeah, a lot of time supporting other people. Yeah, time scrolling on the phone is depleting. Yeah. And Amy's saying here, I'd like to figure out how to make that some depleting and nourishing. We'll talk a little bit about that. Online rabbit holes. Yeah, is there a theme here? Like noticing this theme of social media and online, doing more for others. So not just scrolling on the phone, but responding to messages too, right, depleting. What are some things that you've noticed that feel nourishing? And maybe what you're discovering is, oh, right now, there's not many things on my list that feel nourishing. Not enough ends. Trying to connect with humans. Yeah. coffee in the morning with my partner, meditation, exercises, setting boundaries, cooking, reading, meditation, journal, stretching. Yeah, taking a walk and a break. Yeah, lovely list forming here. Right, I don't have enough nourishing activities. Maybe this is true for you. Maybe you're noticing this. This is really true for so many of us. Right, there's been some research done, particularly for those that are really conscientious and often in caregiver roles, this funnel of exhaustion, where as we start to do more and take care of more, we start to let go of what nourishes us, and our worlds become more and more narrow. Yeah, grateful practices, gratitude practices. So here's something interesting I'd like you to think about. How do you know when something feels nourishing to you? What data, if you will, told you that? Was it something that you felt in the body? Was it something in the mind, in the heart, spirit? How do you know when something's nourishing? Yeah, feeling of light and peaceful brings a sense of calmness, spaciousness in my belly, relaxed, calming and loving sensations. Yeah, makes me smile. Yeah, right. This felt sense of nourishment. We know this, we can feel this. One thing I'll say here about as you're listing some of these is Judd Brewer, who is our Director of Research and Innovation here at the Mindfulness Center at Brown. He and his lab have done some work on a number of things, but one of the things they looked at was the brain's reward value system. Like our brain, computer like that it is, like assigns reward values to activities. And this is one way that habits can form and that we tend to be inclined to do something more than the other. Right. So when we pay attention to activities, when we pay attention to exactly what you're describing, the felt sense of experiences, particularly when they're positive or something we want to cultivate. I mean, this happens the negative way as well, of course, but when we're paying attention and taking that in, really taking that in, allowing that felt sense, we are adding data to our brain, to our nervous system, and we are increasing the reward value of that activity. This inclines the brain to want to do that again. The same is true for activities and behaviors that that are depleting or draining. When we pay attention to the rewards or the results of how we experience those behaviors, really pay attention to them, not just the maybe immediate relief that we get from doing something distracting, but moving beyond that immediate sense of relief to the actual reward that doesn't feel satisfying. And we pay attention to that. We don't avoid it. We just recognize it, acknowledge it, feel it. We decrease the reward value of that. This inclines the brain to want to do less of that. This was something that was shown in one of the studies that his lab did with people quitting smoking. He didn't ask people to stop smoking. He asked them to pay attention while they smoked. And as they started to feel the scratchiness of the throat and the taste in their mouth, they were like, ugh, I don't like this. And let that register and register. Not smoking became easier. Yeah, so it's interesting conversation here about device communication. Yeah, so you know how to pay attention. You know when something's nourishing and depleting. This is good. So one thing when we do this activity, and I recommend you do this activity on a regular basis. Like every few months as our lives change. Because like I said, we start to let go of that which is nourishing and pleasant, really insidiously, right? So it's really helpful when we know how we feel when we feel nourished and when we know activities that are nourishing, and that we can look at our day and see if there's some way that we can rebalance it. So let's, for a few moments, take a look at those activities that are N/D. How many people, just either by show of hands, either electronically or whatever, how many people had some of those? It's like, well, it depends. The same activity. Yeah, those of you that are visible, I see all of your hands. Yeah, those of you, yeah. So either, again, if you want, coming off and speaking or putting into the chat, what do you notice? What makes something, the same activity, nourishing at some times and depleting at other times? Yeah, this is a good point that you're making, doing something healthy for me versus not, whether you're doing it rushed or not, depending on the degree of stress, largely your mood, right? So the context that we're bringing with it, state of mind, very interesting what we're discovering here, right? Energy, family and mood, their mood, capacity, not enough time, right? So when we're feeling pressured and not enough time. Yeah, this comment here, selfish is not selfish, right? So one of the things that we can notice when we start to pay attention to how we spend our time is we can start to notice these thought patterns that we have about it. Because often with nourishing and pleasurable activities, it's really common for us to designate these as rewards. I will do these when I've completed my to-do list, right? Something that we allow or give ourselves only after we've accomplished something else. Right. Yeah. So Jennifer, you're saying here, if the nourishing thing becomes too demanding, right? So this poem by Mary Oliver, I do know how to pay attention. This is what the invitation is as we start to bring mindfulness into how we spend our time. We bring our attention to all of these aspects. What is nourishing? What is depleting? When does something nourishing become too demanding? What contributes to that? Is it something that I'm contributing in some way through how I'm approaching it, thinking about it? Is it something that I don't have any control over? So let's take a look at ways we might want to work with something that's depleting or draining. Like, how do we do that when we can't get rid of it? That is one question. Can I let it go? So I don't want to make assumptions, but I'm pretty sure everybody has something on their list that they find depleting. Is that a decent assumption? Yeah, I've seen thumbs up. So choosing something on your list that's a daily activity that you have to do, that you do, and that you find it depleting. And so first, just taking a moment and once again, coming into a comfortable position. And bringing your attention for a few moments to an anchor that feels comfortable and reliable, such as the breath or sound or a touch point. Right, so we're settling into this moment. And now calling to mind an activity that you found depleting. So bringing to mind this activity you find depleting. And just really have a good sense of it. What it is that you do, what's involved in it, who's involved in it, where. Even have a sense of just even imagining it, how it feels in the body and mind when you reflect on it. And now, as you reflect on this depleting activity, holding these questions that I'm going to pose just in the mind, not striving or overthinking for an answer, but just seeing what, if anything, arises. So here's this activity. And asking yourself, can I let it go? Can I let it go? Is it something that maybe I don't actually have to do? Can I let it be? Can I let it be? It's here. It's something I have to do. Can I just let it be? Does it need addressing in some way? Does it need addressing in some way? Would approaching it with a different attitude have any influence? For example, what would it be like if I brought curiosity to it? Are there thoughts that arise in connection with it that contribute to the depleting and draining nature? Not this again. I don't want to do this. Why doesn't anyone help me? Right? Or does it need some specific action? And in this moment, a specific action might not arise, but maybe it will. Is there something I need to do? Ask for help. Delegate it. Do this activity at a different time. Do it in a different way. Can I let it go? Can I let it be? Does it need addressing in some way? Would approaching this in a different way or with a different attitude have any influence? Does it need some action? And if so, what might that be? Breaking it down. Doing it at a time when I don't feel so rushed, or recognizing that I feel rushed and pausing and settling first. Asking for help or some other action. And so now, If anything came up for you in this reflection, just jotting it down. It might be something you want to go back and explore at a later time. So giving you a moment to jot something down. So this activity, this exploring, nourishing, and depleting activities, bringing our attention to how we spend our time. And with this attention, offering the attitudes that we cultivate when we practice mindfulness: curiosity, interest, compassion for ourselves, non-judgmental approach as best we can, right? Just being curious about, how do I spend my time? How does it make me feel? What, if any, changes can I make? Do I want to make? Using the awareness that's cultivated when we practice mindfulness and applying it to how we feel when we're engaged in action. Activity and mood are so connected, so we're really wanting to pay attention to these two things. So earlier, a number of you noted, for example, like social media can be depleting. Well, so there might be times when we want to like check in with friends and see what's doing, or just check something that we like. And we can notice this. And we can also notice when that very same behavior starts to turn, when our energy starts to change or turn. That's our cue to pause and stop and maybe do something else. Often we blow by those moments. Or coming home from work and watching TV may be great. Maybe there's a show that you want, but when you're 3 hours in, maybe you're like, oh, I'm not even paying attention. I'm zoning out. We can pay attention to that. So what's possible when we start to bring our attention to what we're doing? And then really attending to that, really tending to our time on a regular basis, not letting too much time go by without reflecting on, what are we doing? How are we spending our time? Do I need to make adjustments? Do I need to ask for help? Is there some action I need to take? I'm just going to pause here and open it up and see if there's any questions or comments. What you all might have to share with us. What do you make of this? Right. We do know how to pay attention, right? We can recognize when something is nourishing us and when something is depleting us. We can acknowledge when we might have to engage in things that we don't want to, that we can't get out of. And then we can ask ourselves, we can acknowledge this, not push it away, not deny it. We can acknowledge it, not turn from it. And then we can ask, how can I best support myself in this moment? How can I approach this in a way that feels perhaps less draining, less depleting? Right? We can get really curious about things when they're nourishing one moment and depleting the next. We change. Our values become more clear or crystallized. We have to take action that's hard, that maybe we've been avoiding. Yeah. So building these moments into your day. So as we start to come towards the end, let's just settle in for this moment, right? Once again, settling into a comfortable position. this settling into a comfortable position. We say this all the time, take a comfortable position, settling into a comfortable position, right? There's intentionality here. Just that shift, just that movement of the body, wherever your mind was, whether you're on autopilot or not, you are here now. So taking a few moments and finding a place to rest your attention that feels comfortable, familiar, supportive. These touch tones that we offer the mind, this one place to rest and one place to return to. Breath, sound, touch point. Could even be something in your visual field. And perhaps noticing that this very moment of pausing is nourishing. So taking this in, inviting yourself to rest in this moment. And taking the supportive and anchor that you practice with. This anchor, this touchstone to offer attention to rest and return to, befriending the mind in this way, giving the mind a little rest. Inclining the brain to want to do this periodically throughout the day. Pausing, connecting with yourself, checking in with yourself. Offering the moment to recognize how you are. Reset if needed. Feeling this breath, attending to this sound, feeling this sensation, whatever anchor it is you're practicing with, paying attention to it. As Mary Oliver says, I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And bringing this brief practice to a close, maybe bringing some gentle movement to the body, wiggling fingers and toes, rolling the shoulders, neck, stretching. Oh, thank you all for joining us. Good to see you. Time well spent. Yay. And if you're interested in learning more and engaging in this type of activity,